we're here with 8th period. Say hi, 8th period. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We're on page 16, question 84. Page 16, question 84. We've done a lot of circle problems today, so let's see what else we got. It wants us to determine the equation of the circle based on the graph. So some people have a hard time figuring out where the center of the circle is. So here's a tip. Basically, what you can do is find the middles of each side. In essence, we're looking for the diameter. So if I count, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 down. So I know my diameter equals 10. So now I know the center is half the diameter. So I'm just going to go down. Half of 10 is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here's my center. I can also double check if it's 5 across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on your test, it's going to be on the computer. But you can hold up a piece of paper to the computer screen and draw on the paper. So that might help you. So this point is, if this is the origin at 0, 0, this point is -3, -4. So we know that the diameter was 10, so our radius was 5. And the formula on the formula sheet is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. So for me, the easiest thing to do is eliminate ones that I know the radius is wrong. So 5 squared is 25. So I can immediately eliminate choice 3 and choice 4. Now I'm left here, and I know that when I plug this into the equation, I'm going to get x minus -3 squared, which is really x plus 3 squared. So I know it's choice 2. I could also plug in the -4. Again, the two negatives make it a positive. And that's why we say the sign switches. So our answer is choice 2. For number 85, you will need to know properties of parallelograms. So which statement is true about every parallelogram? Well, all 4 sides are congruent. That's the property of a square, or technically a rhombus. So it's not choice 1. All the interior angles are congruent. That's the property of a rectangle because all the angles are 90 degrees. 2 pairs of opposite sides are congruent. That's our correct answer. Number 4, the diagonals are perpendicular. That would be for a rhombus also. Okay, here's another circle question. There's a lot of circle questions. It tells us which equation represents, here the radius is 9. 9 squared gives us 81, so we can eliminate choice 1 and 2. Now, before I go on, I want to show you something that they might do to trick you. They might tell you that the radius is something like the square root of 17, and they might give you as answers, they might tell you the answer choices are equals the square root of 17, equals 17, and then equals 289, which happens to be 17 squared. Now, oftentimes, what you do is you think, well, 17, it's just going to be this one because 17 squared is 289. But because the radius is the square root of 17, the square root of 17 squared is just plain 17. So if you get a radius that's a radical, you're not going to square the number. You're just going to remove the radical, because the squaring the number is what removes the radical. But anyway, back to this problem. We know this is positive 2, so the signs have to switch. So our answer is choice 4. Okay. 87 is a proof. Now, one of my awesome students got this wrong, and she's like, it's not corresponding. So we have a proof here. It tells us that BC and AD are congruent. That's a side. It tells us that AB and DC are congruent, also a side. It tells us that this is reflexive property, so they proved it with side, side, side. So the question is, why is angle B and angle D congruent? Now, my student was saying, isn't it alternate interior angles? And I'm like, it can't be because they're not on the same transversal. And the answer is going to be 3. But look at how this is. It says corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. My student would thought it was talking about corresponding angles like this. But it's not corresponding angles. You have to read the whole sentence. The whole sentence is corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. That's why it's choice 3. 88 is a good one. For 88, it wants us to determine what type of triangle it is. Now, I'm going to show you more than you need to see because I want you to know how to do this. Because all of this is in a ratio and all these numbers are different, I know right away it's got to be, well, we don't even actually, we know it's a scalene triangle. We know it's not an isosceles triangle because none of those numbers are the same. So what we're going to do is just draw any triangle. It doesn't have to be pretty. And we know we have 2, 3, and 5. So I'm just going to label it 2x, 3x, and 5x. It doesn't matter if it doesn't look right. We're just labeling it 2x, 3x, and 5x because it's going to help us solve it. So if we add these up, 2 plus 3 is 5. 5 plus 5 is 10. So we're left with 10x. And we know there's 180 degrees in a triangle. What do I do next? 180 divided by 10 tells me x equals 18. So now that I know x is 18, I can now multiply each of these. Well, 2 times 18 is 36. 3 times 18, sugar shoots, is 54. And 5 times 18 is 90. And now that I have this information, I could say, oh, well, it's scalene, but I have a 90-degree angle, so it's a right triangle. Someone get this right? Yes, no? 89. Okay, we'll stop at 97 and take a brain break. So here's 89. Okay, we have triangles. It tells us A, B, C, and D, E, F. And it tells us that it's got a proportion. And it says, what other information do we need to prove it? So let's draw A, B, C, and D, E, F. And I intentionally drew one smaller than the other only because it says similar. I didn't want to confuse myself. So we know that AC and CB, or AC is proportional to DF. And I'm drawing congruent, but I'm just showing it to label. And CB and FE, why are people talking? Is congruent. So for similar, or is proportional. For similarity, it's just, we always need to have an angle for similarity. Okay, actually you need a side or an angle. So we could either do side, side, side sim, or we can do side angle, side sim. And it's not that they're congruent, but the sides are proportional. So that means we either need A, B, and D, E, which is not choice 1 and not choice 2. So then now we need to have the angle, and it has to be the angle that's between the two. So it's going to be choice 3. If we had the other one, then we would have the SSA, which we know when we spell backwards is a bad word. So that's why it's not going to be the other one.
Wait, what did you say?
Okay. Here's our next one. Here it tells us parallel. Because it tells us parallel, we can use that side splitter theorem. The side splitter theorem says that things are proportional. So it says AB, this whole thing is 10. It tells us AD is 8. So how much is left for this piece here? 2. It tells us AE is 12. And it wants us to find this one. So someone in my last class said, oh, they're congruent because these are parallel. That's not true. They're proportional. So all you're going to do is do 8 over 2 equals 12 over x and cross multiply. 8x equals 24, divide, x equals 3. Done. Okay, I'm going to make this triangle a little bit bigger so I can visualize it a little bit easier. It tells us that angle R is 58. Angle T is 73. So now for me to find S, what do you think I do? Exactly. 180 minus the 58 minus the 73. So that leaves me with 49. So then again, let's just label these. Think of the story of the three bears. We got the papa bear, the mama bear, and we have the baby bear. So T is the biggest side, so this is going to be the biggest one. This is the papa bear. 58 is the middle number, so this is going to be the mama bear. 49 is the smallest, so this is going to be my baby bear. Correct. That's the same reason why if we have a right triangle, the hypotenuse is the longest side because 90 degrees is the longest angle or the largest angle. So now I think, well, is RT, that's the baby bear, is that smaller than TS, which is the mama bear? Yes. And is that smaller than the papa bear? Yes. So it's choice 1. Choice 2 would be papa is smaller than the mama bear, which isn't the case. And then you can keep going from there. 92. So far, so good. Thank you, guys. In the diagram below of circle O, closest to the microphone, stop talking, both of you. In the diagram below of circle O, diameter AOB is perpendicular to chord CD at point E. It tells us that OA, this section, is 6. It tells us this section right here is 2. And it wants to know the length of this section right here. Okay, anyone have any ideas? So it's actually a trick question. Because this is, what would this line be? What's OC called that I just drew in green? Yes. OC is a radius. So because this is a radius, how long is it going to be? 6. And it says perpendicular, so now it's just Pythagorean theorem. Yeah, so down here, this piece is 2. So we've got x squared plus 2 squared equals 6 squared. X plus 4 equals 36. X equals 32. X squared. Now, if we take the square root of this, we're left with x equals the square root of 32. Hopefully you remember from back in the day that you can make this the square root of 16 times the square root of 2 and get 4 square roots of 2. But let's say you didn't remember that. On the calculator, you're going to be, the calculator that you take for the EOC is a computer calculator that's embedded in the test. So all you're going to do is do the square root of 32 and get the decimal, 5.6. So now we go to each of these and type it in. Well, 4 square roots of 3 is 6.9, so we know it's not that. 2 square roots of 3 is 3.4, so we know it's not that. 8 square roots of 2 is 11.3, so we know it's not that. 4 square roots of, sugar shoots. 4 square roots of 2 is 5.6, so that matches up. So whether you do it the correct way or you just at this point turn it into a decimal and see which decimals mix, either way you'll get the correct answer. Okay, moving on to question 93. I don't think you're going to end up having this question. Okay, in the diagram below, it tells you all of that, and it wants to know what is point P. Point P is the centroid. Okay, the answer is 1. And basically what it's saying is the centroid is because these match up, these are the same, and these are the same. So if you combine the medians, wherever the medians cross, the midpoints, you get the centroid. So that's why it's that one. But I don't expect you to have that question in Georgia. Okay? 4 more, and then we'll take a brain break. In the diagram below, triangle ABC is similar to RST. So that means that we know that A has to match with R, B matches with S, and C has to match with T. So which statement is not true? Well, A matches with R, so it's not choice 1. AB, well, does AB match with RS? Yes. Does BC match with ST? Yes, so it's not 2. AB over BC, does that equal ST over RS? No, so it's choice 3.
Yeah.
95. Again, we have the circle. We have AB is 8. This entire length is 8. It tells us that OC is perpendicular, and it wants the length of OP. Oh, it tells us the radius is 5. So that means that this radius is 5. This perpendicular is actually a perpendicular bisector. So that means that this piece has to be 4 and this piece has to be 4. Because it's perpendicular, we know it's a bisector. So again, we do Pythagorean theorem. X squared plus 4 squared equals 5 squared. X squared plus 16 equals 25. And you're left with, yep, X equals 3. 2 more left, then we'll brain break. Yes, sir. Actually, let's go to 100 and then we'll brain break for longer.
Yes. That's 3 more questions.
Okay. Okay. In the diagram below, line P intersects line M and N. And then it says some information. And what do we know? Well, what type of angles are 1 and 2? Yep, alternate interior angles. Because they're alternate interior, that means they're congruent. That's a really ugly congruent sign. So because they're congruent, that means they're also equal. So we set them equal to each other. We subtract. We divide. And that's it. I know I did that math fast. The main thing is you should know the math for algebra. The main thing is knowing how to use it.
Oh, this question was easy.
I know. I wish I gave us a lot of questions like that. 97. Okay. It shows us that AC below bisects BAD. So that means we know that these angles are congruent. It tells us that angle B and angle D are also congruent. And it wants to know how can we prove this based on this information. So we know we have 2 angles. So it can't be 1 and it can't be 3 because 3's got side angle side. There's no such thing as angle, angle, angle for congruence. There is angle, angle similarity, but not angle, angle congruent. So it can't be 2. So it's got to be angle, angle side. And the other side is just this one right here. AC is congruent to AC because of reflexive property. Okay, we'll just keep going to 100 and then we'll brain break. 98. Parallelogram ABCD has these coordinates. What are the coordinates of E, which is the intersection of diagonals AC and BD? Well, we know that because it's a parallelogram, the diagonals bisect each other. And because the diagonals bisect, you can either do the distance formula divided by 2 and go off, which I think is a waste of time, or just use midpoint formula. But you have to know the midpoint formula. So what's the midpoint formula? Yeah, we add the x, divide by 2, add the y. Because when we look for the bisect, we're just finding the average. So you add up the 2 x's, divide by 2, add up the 2 y's, divide by 2. So the trick is we have to make sure that we bisect an actual diagonal. So we're going to bisect, I just circled AC, so we'll look at A and C. So A is 1, 5. C is 3, -1. So 1 plus 3 divided by 2. That's 4 divided by 2, which is 2. So we know the answer is 1, but let's keep proving it. For the y's, 5 plus -1 divided by 2, that's 4. So it's 2, 2. 2 questions left. Thanks for staying quiet. 99. In the diagram below, we've got that JEA is 90. EAJ is 48. Line segment MS connects point M and S such that EMS is 59. Interesting. Okay. What is JSM? This angle here. Okay. So when I looked at this just now, I was like, oh, this doesn't add up to a triangle. But look, it's not a triangle. This is a quadrilateral. 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. Yeah. So what we're going to actually do is we have to do a lot of different math. First, let's look at the big triangle. For the big triangle, we're going to do 180 minus 90 minus 48, which is 42, which gives us this little piece. Then we know that this is a straight line. Now there's something else you could do there. You could technically say 42 plus x equals 59, that exterior angle theorem thing, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do it the longer way. So then to get this angle, we take 180 degrees, which is a straight line. We subtract 59, so we learn that this angle is 121. And then we have this top triangle, which will give us 180 minus 121 minus 42. And that'll give us the missing angle. So pretty much you just have to keep at it. There's our 17 degrees. Okay. Last question. Then we'll definitely brain break, I promise. Triangle ABC is dilated with a scale factor of 2. Which statement is true? So if we start at AC, and then it gets by a scale factor of 2, what I would do is make up numbers. Let's call this 2, 3, and 4. So that means this is 4, 6, and 8. So does AC equal A prime C prime? Well, AC is 4. Does that equal 8? No. So it's not 1. Now, when it comes to congruence and dilation, we don't get congruent shapes. What we get is we get similar shapes. And for congruent deals with the sides. Similarity equals the angles. So it's actually choice 2 because the angle measures have to be the same. The perimeters aren't going to be the same because if we add this up, we get 11. If we add this up, we get 24. Wait, no, we don't. 5, 9. We get 9 here. If we add this up, we get 24. No, we don't. Why can't I do math? 18. Jeez Louise. So it's not 3. And then 2 times this area equals here, and that's also not the case. Okay, before you get excited, let me hit stop broadcasting first.